A major diplomatic storm has erupted at the United Nations. China has strongly condemned the United States for seizing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and flying him to New York to face criminal charges. Beijing called the move illegal, bullying and a direct attack on Venezuela's sovereignty, warning it could set a dangerous global precedent. At an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council, China said it was shocked by what it described as a unilateral use of force, adding that the United States had ignored international law and disregarded sovereign equality. Beijing demanded the immediate release of Maduro and his wife and called on Washington to resolve disputes through dialogue and not force.
The U.S. has placed its own power above multilateralism and military action above diplomatic efforts, posing a grave threat to peace and security in Latin America and the Caribbean, and indeed internationally. China firmly opposes this, and the international community has also expressed widespread grave concern and strong condemnation.
The dramatic developments followed a late-night raid in Caracas on Saturday, where Maduro and his wife were detained and transported to the United States. Maduro is now facing charges including narco-terrorism and weapons-related offences, accusations he has strongly denied. He has pleaded not guilty in a New York court. Now, Washington has defended its actions, saying this was a law enforcement operation based on long-standing indictments. In fact, President Donald Trump had referenced the Monroe Doctrine to justify the operation, a principle that has shaped US policy in Latin America for nearly 2 centuries. First articulated by President James Monroe in the 1800s, the doctrine was originally designed to warn European powers against intervening in the Western Hemisphere.
All of these actions were in gross violation of the core principles of American foreign policy, dating back more than 2 centuries, and not anymore. All the way back, it dated to the Monroe Doctrines, and the Monroe Doctrine is a big deal, but we've superseded it by a lot, by a real lot. They now call it the Monroe Document. I don't know. It's Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our new national security strategy, American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again. Won't happen.
Now, the United States insisted there was no war against Venezuela and no occupation, only a move to protect its citizens from narco-terrorism. Meanwhile, Russia sided with China, accusing the United Nations of international banditry and saying there could be no justification for the operation in Caracas. The United Nations has voiced serious concern, warning that the raid could worsen instability in Venezuela and create a troubling example of how states deal with each other. Now, Colombia, which requested the emergency meeting with support from China and Russia, urged all sides to focus on the well-being of the Venezuelan people, warning that civilians often pay the highest price in such crises. China has deep economic and strategic ties with Venezuela. Analysts say China may not offer direct material support, but its diplomatic weight could shape international opinion against Washington.
Cooperation between China and Venezuela is collaboration between sovereign states. It is protected by international law and the respective national legislation of both countries. Regardless of political developments in Venezuela, China's commitment to deepening practical cooperation across various fields remains unchanged, and China's legitimate interests in Venezuela shall be safeguarded in accordance with the law.
Well, for nearly 2 decades, China and Venezuela have built a unique oil-backed financial partnership. Through loans for oil arrangements, Beijing extended billions of dollars in credit to Caracas. This episode exemplifies the dynamics of great power competition on the global stage. For many, the seizure of Maduro without multilateral authorization reinforces long-standing claims that international law is applied selectively. How this moment is absorbed by global institutions will signal whether multilateralism can still restrain power. The world watches closely as Latin America once again becomes the center of a global struggle.
The world doesn't fit in boxes, so why should your news? From battlefields to negotiation tables, from internet outrage to real-world injustice. The conversations everyone is having and the ones they're avoiding. It's the same show, but this new year, Firstpost America gets a new look. I'm Kerry Johnston, and this is Firstpost America.